Hey there. I wanted to bring today's episode to the podcast talking about the common mistakes that we see with couples on the fertility journey and really how you can avoid them so you can improve your chances of pregnancy success. I am running you through these common mistakes so you don't have to make them. So excited for you to listen to today's episode. Hey there, I'm Sarah Clark, founder of Fat Fertile and your host. I believe the first step for anyone on the fertility journey is the functional approach, and my aim is to help you get pregnant naturally. Today, we're digging into the most common mistakes we see on the fertility journey. And this episode is for you if you've tried everything, but nothing has worked. You're not sure what to do for 2022 to optimize your fertility. You feel like IVF may be your next best step, but you really want to get pregnant naturally. Thanks so much for listening. I'm so thankful that you're here. Make sure you hit subscribe. And if you know someone else who's on the fertility journey, please share this podcast with them. Okay, so we are talking about some common mistakes that we see on the fertility journey and really sharing these with you so that you can have an action plan for 2022. So the first ones we're talking about, and I've talked about this one before a lot. So those generalized recommendations. So really, reading books, listening to podcasts, blogs. There's a lot of, different recommendations for people that are on the fertility journey. And if you're here and you have low AMH or high FSH, diminished ovarian reserve or premature ovarian insufficiency, you've probably already done a lot of stuff, already made a lot of changes. Anyone on the fertility journey has typically done a lot of things. They may have already thought they found their solution when they went to IUI or IVF, and then it hasn't worked, and it can really send you on this downward spiral of reading and researching. And, most people that we work with, they put on the research hat, and it could be like hours of research a day and just becomes more overwhelming, and really kind of looking for those, what is maybe a magic pill, what is the one thing that, is going to, shift the needle. And then they're trying a whole bunch of things and maybe not trying it all the way through, kind of giving up. And so these generalized recommendations, it can do a lot of with the self-diagnosing, which that just wastes time, right? So you can think you have whatever issue it is that's been, shared there with you. Maybe you think you have a thyroid issue. Maybe it's blood sugar. Maybe you're trying to figure out a food sensitivity and you've already taken out the foods, but now it seems like you didn't even notice any issues when you took them out. And then when you brought them back in, you're like, I don't even notice a problem. So all of these things, making these changes are, you've found this podcast and maybe you've made a lot of the changes that I suggested, but really self-prescribing and doing this by yourself, it just wastes time. We see a lot of mistakes with that, where with people, they might have got the diet and lifestyle piece nailed in, but typically you've got to dig deeper. And there's usually, biochemical issues that have been missed. Those, and then also, food sensitivities and gut infections and more that, that most people get wrong. And that self-prescribing, it can just take, years to do this by yourself. So generalized recommendations, it might have worked for someone else. That's why they wrote the book. They talked about it in the podcast because it worked for them, but is it right for you? And so this is like a very personalized approach to figuring out, why for you and for me as well, why did it impact our fertility, and how do we fast track this and stop wasting time with these generalized recommendations that may not be right for you. That is number one. And so with our Fat Fertile method, we use testing, and testing is only the beginning. So we have access to functional lab testing. And then we develop that targeted diet and lifestyle protocol for you, a mind, body, spirit approach that helps you with your partner. So this is you doing this with your partner. A lot of the times people come to see us and, the female partner is the one doing all the changes. Not to say the male partner hasn't done anything, but many times he's just had a semen analysis. He's been told everything's fine and it's female factor infertility. And he potentially is very supportive, but he may not know what he can do to optimize his preconception health. And we haven't had one male partner come in where we're like, wow, everything is totally perfect. You have nothing to do. That's not the case. So again, it's this mind, body, spirit approach where you guys are in this together. building that strong foundation for your baby. So even though it's female factor infertility, and even if it's not, so we sometimes we have the low AMH and high FSH, and you've also got male factor, or they've been told it's normal. And we look at the semen, we do a semen analysis, and it turns out, it may be normal in conventional levels, which are for people with disease. And so they're just tighter, they're just wider reference ranges, and the functional reference ranges are tighter, and just flags it before it gets to disease. So those are things to consider. So those generalized recommendations, are they right for you? Is it sending you back? Do you find yourself self-diagnosing, self-prescribing, and it's still not working? Okay. Number two, another mistake we see is just focusing on the testing. So, we have access to functional lab testing. If you're here, functional medicine approach, typically, addressing those missed healing opportunities. It's the future of conventional medicine, where we, instead of just, a pill for an ill, and using and prescribing, which is more of a Band-Aid approach, it's using the testing, but then we need to develop those target diet and lifestyle changes. So people get very hung up on the testing. It's like, okay, it's the testing. This is it. I'm going to test and all my problems will be solved. And so the testing is only the beginning. The testing gives us a roadmap. So typically we work with couples, and then we'll do a health history review, full health history questions that your conventional doctor may have never asked you. And then we add in testing, anywhere from stool testing to hormone testing. We're also doing blood chemistry review, not to diagnose, but to educate. We could be doing genetic testing for you, hair tissue mineral analysis testing, food sensitivity testing, and more. And so many people have come to us and they've already done some of the testing, but they may have done it just ad hoc, kind of like, oh, I did a food sensitivity with this company, or I did this with that company. So we don't have any affiliation with any of the labs that we select. We're always selecting the best test that's available on the market, that's right for fertility and for general health. So, and so the mistakes we see with the testing is you just do the testing and then you don't actually follow through with the protocol, or it's like piecemeal the testing, where you do one test here, one test there over the number of months, and no one's actually putting it all together and looking at it from, a mind, body, spirit approach and a holistic approach, and considering, obviously you on the fertility journey too, and what that means for fertility. So we typically work with, like you've heard me maybe say, if you've listened to this podcast for a while, type A, science-minded, left brain people. So they're basically like, give me the plan, let's go and take action. They love the test. That's why I do this, I developed this method. I love the test too. I'm like, woo, great, here's a plan. And so that starts you off, but then it's the work of then implementing the plan. And that's where the rubber hits the road. And many times you get off track and you're like, oh, forget that test. I'm going to go over here. And then you doubt the process. And then you're like, I don't even sure if it's working. I'm going to go over here. And so, so in the program, I have a fertility coach for you and a functional nutrition practitioner. So the functional nutrition practitioner will develop the plan based on the testing and the protocol. And then the fertility coach will help you implement that and see where you have those patterns where you're like, maybe you're not trusting, maybe you're like, trying to fast track it. Maybe you're going down like a research rabbit hole, all these things to call you out on your own crap, right? Because we all have it. And times of stress, what do we do? I know in times of stress, I turn to a wild researcher. I freaking do. It's like, I literally, if there's a medical thing and someone in my family is a medical thing, I find myself like researching, trying to fix it. I want to control it. I want to like just attack it. When I know that can be part of it, right? So you found us here because you research and you want to learn more and you want to be empowered, which is good. But then it's also, how's that impacting you? How are you feeling if you're doing hours of research? And the whole piece with the testing, did you go and because you can, all these tests, like you can poke holes in every last one of these tests. And so it is to kind of be like, okay, the tests are part of it, but is not the full solution. It's the mind, body, spirit approach to this. So people get caught up on the testing, think they've got the test and they're good to go. and then it's still not working. They're wondering why, because they've missed those other healing opportunities that, the test will give us a path forward, but it's also the mind, body, spirit approach that we have to dig into those patterns, dig into limiting beliefs. And maybe deep, deep, deep in your soul, you don't believe it's going to work. Or maybe if you really get quiet, like really sit with yourself, that you actually know it's going to work, that you know it is. And you might just be having, and if you're not sure right now, and you're feeling like that really hopeless, or you're feeling stuck in comparison, or you're just like, because all this is fear, like the underlying emotion with all of this is fear that it won't work, right? That's why you're feeling impatient. That's why you feel frustrated. That's why you're like jumping all over the place, trying to self-prescribe or self-diagnose, is fear that it won't work. And you're running out of time. And the fertility industry perpetuates this complete panic of like, oh my goodness, your eggs are running, your eggs are old, your eggs are not, they're poor quality, and a panic of you had better rush to IVF. So, which is really contraindicative of a pregnancy where it's, receiving and bringing in new life and being in, the feminine energy and calm and peaceful. So you really want to see if you're feeling like you're not trusting the process, you're not following through. Maybe you've done some of these tests, but you actually didn't follow through with the protocol. You're like, oh, okay, I only did it for like 1 month when the protocol was 3 to 4 months, or you were still trying during the protocol, or you were, just not following through. And is that a pattern for you where you're like, wait a minute, I want to find something else, and not like going deeper? And a lot of this is some inner work, right? I've done a lot of inner work, because I literally thought I wasn't stressed out when I was diagnosed with premature ovarian insufficiency. I thought it was totally fine. I didn't need anybody else. Just give me the plan. I'm going to donor eggs, and luckily for me, it did work. But then my health took this complete nosedive. And so I had to look at all my stuff. And I know, my pattern is to, like, I love meditation, yoga, all of those things. But in times of stress, what do? I give it all up. I don't meditate. I don't do yoga. I will still walk, but, and I'm like, why am I turning into an asshole? Like, and it's like, it's sort of, to see what it is your patterns are, and what do you need, and where are you, trying to speed things up, not looking at the real issue going on here. And there might be like that real sense of panic, right? So to be able to address that and sort of keep pushing it down, because it's completely normal to feel that, right? The moment you start trying for your child is when you want to have your child. And so it doesn't matter if you're 28, 38, there's no matter with the age, that's when you want to then expand your family. And when it's not working, it's super frustrating, and there's a lot of heartache in there. And so as part of the testing, we sometimes see too many practitioners. You've got one person doing this thing, one person doing that, someone else doing this. You got someone doing the testing, another test over here with, another practitioner. So too many people in the pot, not really bringing it all together. That's why I have assembled a team, and really to bring it all together so we can have all eyes on a case. And we do weekly case reviews with our nutritional practitioner, our physician that does case reviews, our fertility coach, and really all eyeballs on a case, so we can then get the increased outcomes and see what's been missed, and we can see everyone's kind of look at it differently. But if you have it all in different spots, no one's, it's almost like that conventional approach where you got a GI issue, a digestive issue, you go to the gastroenterologist. You've got a acne or skin rash, and you go to the dermatologist. You've got a joint problems, you go to the rheumatologist. So you go to all these different people, but no one's putting it together that all of that's probably gut health. So it's interesting how we in conventional medicine sort of like piece it out. So this is bringing it all together. So we see mistakes with the testing. Other things with the testing is we see that there's people are using out of date tests that, are just not cutting edge, not like, if you're in the functional space, you want to make sure you're using the best test available, and people are just using older tests that just waste money. And it doesn't get to the base, the healing opportunities. And then with the testing piece is we get so focused, where's those tests? I want to have the testing. It's going to tell me what I got to do. Let's go. And it does give you a plan, and it does give you a roadmap, and it is part of our Fab Fertile method. But it's equally as important to focus on the right diet, to dig into your sleep, like your rest, making sure you have rest, your movement. Are you moving enough or are you moving too much? Your stress reduction. What happens in time of stress? What do? Do you shut down? Do you keep going until you burn out? Do you not ask for help? Do you, is there issues around boundaries where you're just like, I will work until, 60, 70, 80 hours a week. I will say yes to everyone and forget about yourself. Like, what do you do in times of stress? Supplements. So supplements are part of the protocol. People get caught up again in the supplements that, you're taking heaps of supplements. They don't know why they're taking them. So definitely supplements are included in the Fab Fertile method. But it's like, why you're taking them, how long you're taking them for. There are some basic ones that were probably like a long term just for good health that we recommend. The other ones are they're targeting something, optimizing, eradicating. So there's a reason for it. And so those basics, diet, rest, exercise, stress, and supplements, those are the basics. And people are like, ooh, get caught up on the test and then forget in the meantime that the number one that, well, there's two things. Diet, like dig into your diet. What are you eating? And sleep. Have you optimized your sleep? Are you getting enough sleep? What's happening there? So those are some mistakes we see around the testing piece and kind of where people go off in the wrong direction. And, my team has typically all been through their own kind of dark night of the soul, made changes to their diet and lifestyle. So we've worked on our own crap. Again, none of us are perfect, but we're on a healing journey, which you'll probably be on your whole life. And of like, where do you see? And so it's really, a lot of it is just like understanding your body, like what's right for you. So we've been through our own stuff. So then we can kind of be like, we sort of see where people kind of go off the rails there, and being able to call them out and bring them back. So the next one of the biggest mistakes that we see, some common mistakes, are going to IVF too early. So especially once we specialize with, low AMH, high FSH, diminished ovarian reserve, premature ovarian insufficiency or failure. And did I say diminished ovarian reserve? Yeah. And so those ones with that, many people are told, they need to go to IVF. So they've gone to IVF, but when they've gone there, they may have had poor response. So it didn't work. They may have had canceled cycles. It didn't work. They had a cycle and it failed. The embryos didn't make it. They may have had miscarriage. So selecting that option, right? And maybe you're like, wait a minute, I've selected IVF, this is what's going to happen. It's going to work for me. And an average IVF is, $20,000. And it could take up to 3 cycles. And then with low AMH and high FSH, like there's always healing opportunities. We haven't had one person that comes in, we're like, wow, everything looks fine. We have nothing to address. Like there's always things we can dig into, otherwise you'd be pregnant. So we see that people that work with us typically have been trying naturally for 2 years or had at least one failed IUI or IVF, sometimes multiple IUIs and IVFs. Just keep going. And then no one's addressed these healing opportunities. When we look at your health history, use the testing, look at that, those foundational pieces, diet, rest, exercise, movement, sleep, and supplements, that we can, start shifting the needle. So, going to IVF too early, it can be, when it doesn't work, is obviously there's a financial strain. It's heartbreaking. It's like this roller coaster of like huge anticipation of, oh my goodness, is it going to, what's going to happen? And then it'll just crashing down. So it's, and then all those hormones, right, that are pumped through your body, which, it can take a little bit of time for the body to come back into balance after that. So our thing is, before you go to IVF, let's work on to see exactly why it's not working. So you got those diagnoses I talked about, like premature ovarian insufficiency, diminished ovarian reserve. Many times they won't even take you for IVF. They just won't do it. So, and then we work with couples where they've been told it's donor eggs, IVF won't work. And we either help them get pregnant naturally, which we see all the time, or if they do go to IVF, then they're getting pregnant with they're getting pregnant with their own eggs. So when they've been told it won't work. So, and if you check out my website, there's lots of case studies on there about we regularly see, and it's like I feel like a broken record, but it's like gut infections, like parasites, bacterial infections, thyroid imbalance, like we see that all the time, blood sugar issues, food sensitivities. So all we do is basically we're reducing inflammation in the body and getting you into that parasympathetic rest and digest state instead of up here in the inflammation side of things. How do you reduce it? And so if you are thinking that IVF is your only option at this stage, I really encourage you to dig deeper as to, well, why it's not working in the first place, and working on your health. To me, there's no negative side effects to working on your health. Like you'll get healthier. You'll either get pregnant naturally, or when you do go to IVF and invest all that money, it'll actually work. Then you'll have, like a healthier pregnancy and children as well. So you've worked on those healing opportunities. Obviously this is not perfect, but when you work on these things and address it, and typically in conventional medicine, it's here you go, let's pump you full of drugs and off you go. Now, obviously for me, I did that and I was one of the lucky ones that worked. We see the people that it hasn't worked. And then it's like multiple failed IVFs and things that it hasn't worked for them. And then let alone the emotional devastation of that. So these are some of the common mistakes that we see where people are going to IVF too early. The next one we see is doing it all by yourself. And this is kind of along that self-prescribing side of things, where these diet and lifestyle changes can be simple, but they're not easy. Otherwise, we'd all be doing them. And so it is to help. Where is there societal pressures of people are like, well, why are you eating that way? What are you doing? Does that bring up you're like, I want to please other people? Does that bring up the maybe some boundary issues where people are like, well, I can't tell people that I don't want to eat that stuff. It's not going to make me feel good. People don't even, can feel uncomfortable even saying what it is they need. So as you start to flex this muscle and, share, demand and set your boundaries, then you're able to really put yourself first. Yeah, because self-care is not selfish, right? Hashtag self-care, but it is putting yourself first and then sort of seeing what happens when you're trying to do these diet and lifestyle changes. Does life get in the way? Do you overwork? Do you do you find maybe you're using maybe food as a coping mechanism? Like what are your patterns, and being able to having someone else call you out on them? Because if you could do it by yourself, you already would have done it. I believe, I didn't have a coach until I had a coach. And now I'm like, how could I never not have had a coach to help me through in all areas of my life? So is to have someone call you out on your own crap, because it's hard for us to see it. I can see it very clearly in others, and probably people can see it in me, but and now, as I become more in tune to my patterns, I can see what it's doing. I start to get this, like, I get like a neck pain. I get this like shoulder pain, which I equate with, like, it's interesting where I'm like, oh my God, I get that shoulder pain. That's fear. I was like, it's stuck in my body. To do some yoga where it's like, you get grief stuck in your hips, or negative emotion stuck in the lower part of your body. Like, what's stuck in there, and you need to release it and get it out. And sometimes we don't even know it's there, right? Most of the time we don't know it's there. And so having someone really hold you accountable, call you out, be your cheerleader, help you and your partner get on the same page. Like, most people are obviously on the same page. They want to have their child, but couples, this journey can pull you apart or bring you closer together. So having you guys each setting your health goals and getting healthy together, and having accountability to do this is key. So doing this by yourself can take time. It can, a lot of time with this journey is there's a lot of things that can push your buttons. You're like, are you kidding me? Did someone just say that to me? Like, did they just ask me again that, when are you having kids? Did someone, so it's, then you just want to just spiral, or you want to just deck them, right? Or someone's like, oh, can you just relax? It'll work. Go on vacation. Right. So some of those things are they're hurtful, they're unhelpful, and they're, they can either have you lashing out Have you spiraling down? Have you like hiding and not coming out for ages to talk to people because you're like, wait a minute, I don't even want to talk to people because they're, that's just going to get me going. And so to have someone who's been through it, obviously we can't stand in your, your exact shoes, but being someone who's been on the fertility journey and can understand those different pressures and different things you may be exposed to. So it's a unique journey. And if someone hasn't been on it, it's hard to understand. So, the fertility journey impacts all aspects of your life, and to really have someone that can help you get out of your own way so you can make these changes, see where you're potentially self-sabotaging yourself, or you're like, oh man, I'm going to do this. And then oopsie, next thing you know, you're, you're heading down to, get fast food because you worked too long. You forgot to get the groceries. You really actually were completely stressed because, someone in your office was pregnant and you had to sit beside them all day long. And like, so there's all these different things that sometimes you don't even know what it is that's actually really bothering you. It's interesting. I know for myself, when I get quiet, I'm like, Sarah, you're not mad at that. It's actually this that's bothering you. So why are you being a pain in the butt to that, being an asshole to your husband, when it's not him that's bothering you? It's the person that made the comment that over there. Right. And we end up doing stuff that does not help our relationships. And, but so it's being able to have someone call you out on that, see where you go different ways, and how, not to judge yourself, right? Like, this is not about perfection. This is about, being able to show yourself some compassion. And maybe there's like compassion fatigue where you're like, I've been showing myself compassion for if you've been on the journey for years, and it's not funny, like being on the journey for years, and you could have compassion fatigue for yourself, that like you're trying to show yourself compassion, but this has been going on for so long. And so that can be hard. And even people around you, maybe they're trying to be supportive, but maybe they have compassion fatigue. So to have someone else that is compassionate and empathetic and being able to, help you through it, it can make you feel less alone, because this journey can be, alienating. You may feel isolated. I did a whole series on faith and fertility, and even, places of worship where you could go for peace may not feel peaceful because it's filled with families and maybe pregnant bellies and things. So all of these are unique to the fertility journey, and we're kind of impacted when you're on it. Anytime you see a family could just be like heart-wrenching for you. So again, doing this by yourself, it can just take longer, and it can just be harder. And so that's why I've developed the Fab Fertile method. So you don't need to struggle like I did, where I was just like a little robot going along, doing it by myself until I couldn't anymore. So reach out for help beforehand, not after. And the next one we have, one of so these common mistakes that we have here is not working with a fertility expert. So many people, with functional medicine and functional doctors, many people are like, oh, I'm going to go to a functional doctor and get some testing done, but they are not an expert in fertility. They don't work with fertility day in and day out. And so they may know some of the tests. And that's why we see people that have done some of the tests piecemeal, typically with one doctor here or one practitioner there. And no one's putting together the whole case, and we're missing aspects that are unique to the fertility journey. Like, we see themes, and if you listen to my podcast, I have a number of episodes I've done on the themes that we see with people with low AMH and high FSH, diminished ovarian reserve, and premature ovarian insufficiency, with food sensitivities like non-celiac gluten sensitivity. And so we see gluten off the chart. Like, that's a theme that we see. And we see thyroid imbalance. It's not just about you taking Synthroid. It's why is it off to begin with? We see blood sugar imbalance, where maybe it's not diabetic, or it could be pre-diabetic, but it might even be before that, but something is off, which is then causing, which then can impact your sex hormones. And way more. So, toxin exposure, mental, emotional stress. And typically, if someone does not, specialize in fertility, they may, if you're with a functional doc, you may have, or a local practitioner, they may have may have done some of these tests. Are the tests old? Are they the right tests for you? Are they going to shift the needle? Because there is an investment in these tests. But have they looked at the mind, body, spirit approach to this? What do they specialize with fertility? And so if someone's not specializing in fertility, they're not going to know the themes. They're not going to see, what happens and what people, how they actually, when they come to you partway through the middle of the program, like we can see kind of themes of what people do, where there could be self-sabotage, there could be not trusting the process, they could go and second guess, they could go over here. And then we have ways to help bring people back. Are they avoiding trauma? Like, are they, is there things that they're pushing their emotions down because that's how they cope? And is researching just like a thing that like that keeps you in control. So where can you let go of control? Well, but but still moving forward, because we're all about a plan here. We're still moving forward, but how do you let go of control to know that, to trust the process and that you're in good hands. So we see people that have gone with other practitioners that are not an expert in fertility. They don't do fertility, work with couples on the fertility journey day in and day out like we do. And it can just be, again, missed healing opportunities. They've done a lot of work, but we bring it all together and we can identify those little areas. Again, and those case reviews that we do weekly with our team can help identify what has been missed. So again, another common mistake we see, not working with a fertility expert. And that just wastes money, wastes time, and doesn't get you any closer to pregnancy success. So with our Fab Fertile method, again, we do have access to functional testing. So food, stool, hair testing, what else? Genetic testing, and more, depending on when we'll bring the test in for you and when it's right for you. Also blood chemistry review, not to diagnose, but to educate, typically looking at a full blood chem at the beginning and at the end, and then monthly with checking on your levels, making sure to see how you're doing. The method includes coaching, which really helps you and your partner implement these targeted diet and lifestyle changes, because you can get the plan, but if you don't make the changes, it's just might as well throw it in the garbage over your shoulder, done. Like, you've got to make these changes and see what is getting in your way of making them. And that helps you fast track your success. You can have someone point out, oh, wait, this is what you're doing. You're going over here, pointing out your patterns so you can move forward on your own terms, which is extremely empowering. So at the end of the program, you'll either be happily pregnant, or if you do need to go to the fertility clinic, you'll dramatically improve your chances of pregnancy success with your own eggs, because you will have optimized your own health and fertility. And we specialize in tough cases like low AMH and high FSH, diminished ovarian reserve, and premature ovarian insufficiency. You can check out some case studies on my website. But basically, if you're ready for 2022 to have a plan to figure out, why it's not working and avoid these common mistakes, all you need to do is go to fabfertile.com, click on apply here, and we will chat with you and your partner, come up with a specific plan just for you so you can improve your chances of pregnancy success in 2022. So take care and have a great day.